Just a quick review of the schedule. Jackie and I this morning, we're going to do some, first I'm going to give you some sort of public speaking tips, things you should do in debates. Then we're going to go into cross-ex, and we'll spend the bulk of our time on cross-ex. And we'll give you tips for cross-examination, and then we'll do some demonstrations on all of you. So you can see what effective cross-examination really looks like. After that, we're going to talk a little bit about debating paperlessly. Okay. So putting your files on a template, how to use them, how to set up blocks. Lunch, and then this afternoon we have a big lecture. And my team is really excited about this. I think most of you really liked yesterday's guest lecture. He's an amazing fella. Today we're going to have James Carafano from the Heritage Foundation after lunch. He's going to come and talk to you about immigration. He is consulted a lot by the government on immigration policy, so he's coming in to talk to us about that very hot button issue. So, any questions about the day? Everybody has a schedule still? All right, get started. Like I said, Jackie and I are going to talk to you about public speaking, things you should be doing or not be doing. So let's talk about this a little bit, especially for people who are new to debate. Why is this so important? One of the most famous statistics. Jackie's got me blocked in. I can't do my. No, I mean I have to record. The most normal statistics, or most often quoted statistics, is that people are more afraid of speaking in public than they are of death. Which amazes me, obviously, because this is what I do. And I would much rather speak in public than have someone shoot me, say. Why do we think it's so important? Well, there's a few reasons. Right? Public speaking will be very important to your education. How many of you want to give a presentation at some point in high school? Right. They'll grade that, so it's going to help you do a little bit better at that point. More importantly, not more importantly, but more often you're going to use it in college. Okay? I did a lot more public speaking presentations in college than I ever did in high school. I don't know if that's true for the rest of you, but I did way more public speaking in college, and it was graded much more stringently than it was for me in high school. I mean, I didn't really have any problem doing it in high school either. I was already debating. But you got to do it again then. And the other reason why I really help you in education is that in order to properly prepare to speak in public, you have to prepare, right? So you have to do some research. You have to write out a persuasive argument. That's all going to help you improve your writing and research skills, which are crucial to school. I'm going to skip down. Better test scores. I don't know how many of you have ever seen the statistics, but kids who do debate do 10% better on standardized testing. 10% better. Well, that's a huge gain. Does anyone know why you do so much better?
Because our minds think more analytically.
Sure, you have better critical thinking minds. What else? Go ahead.
You're like exposed to the literature.
Right, you read a little more advanced literature. You're better versed.
Think faster and interpret things more deeply.
Right, you do. You think much faster if you're used to doing public speaking. You know why? Because as you're standing up here doing public speaking, and we all do this too as we're giving lectures to you, we watch you, and so off of cues you might not even realize you give us, we know how we need to adjust our material. Okay, we have to think pretty quick. Just like when we're in debates, people ask us a question, we have to be prepared. The other reason is because your vocabulary is larger. Okay? Vocabulary. You have a much larger, more precise vocabulary. If anyone ever doubted this, since I've started raising my children, which you have now all seen or met, I'm totally convinced. And my 4-year-old was in preschool last year, and they said to me when he was like 3 that they thought there was a problem. I might want to get his speech assessed because he was like arguing with his classmates. So I took him in and got an assessment. And if you've ever done that, they like talk to you and the child for a little bit. Or I guess none of you really don't know kids, but if you did this when you were little. Then they take the child back and they talk to him for about 45 minutes and they come back. And the speech therapist sits down, she takes a big breath, I'm not sure how to tell you this, and my heart stopped beating. Because, I won't force him to do debate, but I have these grand thoughts of what he might do if he debates, right? Like the other day, I was in the debate office, he was pointing at a very big trophy, and I was like, August, you know who wins those big trophies? He's like, who? I'm like, debaters. Do you want a big trophy? Well, then you better do debate. Okay.
That's all you need to do.
But anyways, my heart stops, so I think, oh no, what's going to be wrong with him? And she says to me, I'm trying to figure out how to say this nicely. I have no idea why your son is here. He's been the best 45 minutes of my day, probably of several months. He's very entertaining. Basically what she said is that he's 3, and his vocabulary is that of a 5-year-old. And so the reason why he's fighting with the other 3-year-olds is because none of them understand what he's saying, because they talk in small structures with smaller words, whereas August is talking in paragraph form, and if you've met him, he continues to speak in essay form now. And he uses much bigger words than them. Okay? So if I ever doubted that, and I'm telling you, I think the reason he's constantly around the debate team, they'll tell you, I bring him in all the time. He goes off with them like he's just, one of the debaters. He's gone to debate tournaments. He's been doing that since he was a baby. I used to walk in with him to my old high school, and he would just sit there while I was teaching. And so I think that's definitely true. Okay? I don't need any more to look at those. I just look at my children, and I know that's true. Okay? The vocabulary that you get when you're in debate is much higher. Obviously, this will be a lifelong skill that you're going to learn, right? When you go to interview, I've never interviewed for a job that I have not gotten. Because I'm so good at selling myself. Right? Public speaking is giving me that ability that I can stand up in front of anyone and talk about how great something is. Okay? It's also influenced by confidence. Okay? Of any of our lab leaders or anyone on our staff, do any of us seem like we lack confidence? No. Okay? So we just can stand up and do this. Sometimes we might be making up what we're telling you. You'd never know it. Okay? We just do it so confidently. So it will really influence when you go for an interview. It will influence when your resume, when you go to look for a job, you go into the job market, you should definitely put that you were in debate at some point. Employers look for that because they know what that means, right? It's no different than when I went to some of these experts in their fields and the reaction was, talk to the debate team? Why'd they have that reaction? We're a very polished group. Someone who hasn't had the same sort of public speaking exposure or hasn't been as, trained in it as you have been, they get nervous to speak in front of that sort of group. Or they know that you know your stuff. And so they're waiting to see, just like yesterday, the professor was impressed. Right? You were knowledgeable was not what he was expecting when I said, come speak to this group of middle school and high school debaters. He was shocked. Right? Most people, they realize the sort of research that we do. Okay? So employers are impressed by this. I always make sure it's like the leading thing on my resume, no matter what job I go for. Okay? Of course, all of them are pretty much leading jobs now. All right, so I'm going to give you some tips how to make sure you do this well. Okay? Now this will apply if you're just doing plain old public speaking addresses in school, or if you're standing up to do a debate. Okay, I have various tips for you when you go. Okay, number 1, set up. Set up properly. A good public speaker looks like they're ready to go. What do we do every time that one of us comes up to give a lecture? What do we do?
You get set up.
Right. We make sure this is ready to go. We have our notes out. Okay. Do we sit? No. Right? We're always set up properly. If you're going to debate with other things, right, I would say use a podium. So on many occasions you see me do this. Right? This is one of those things I don't really need too much to look at my notes. But other things where I know I'm going to look at my notes, I create a podium. Right? So if you're going to go into a debate round, you should always make sure you've set up a podium. If you're using paper, right, this works fantastically. If you are a paperless team, so in other words, you're going to speak off your laptop, you've probably seen the Mason debaters. There's these stands, and if you don't have them for yourself, you should consider getting one if you debate on your laptop. They collapse, so we take the legs out and we screw them back in when we're ready to speak, and they can go at varying heights, and we just set our laptops right on top of them, so it puts everything up to eye level for us. Yes?
Where can those be purchased?
You can get those online. We got ours off of Amazon.com for $25. It's worth the investment if you debate a lot, and we just put them in our backpacks. We assign one to each team for the season. They slide them in their backpacks, and they set them up. Okay. If you're somebody who can't necessarily afford that, another suggestion I have is look around. You can usually find these in a classroom. Some people I've seen use trash cans if they're shorter. Just flip it over if there's trash in it. Take it out first. Or just set it up. Put your computer right on top of it. Okay, so the first thing is you've got to make sure you're ready to go. Standing up here, ready to speak. There's a look about you. I can tell within about 2 minutes in a debate the more experienced debaters. Because of the way they approach getting set up. You can always see that. Isn't that true? And it says something about you. So even if you might not be the best debater in the world, that's okay because you can look the part and really confuse your judge. And that's simply setting up properly. Second tip I tell you is to look at your audience. Okay. Eye contact is a lost art. Even in debate. Like I understand we're reading papers, we're on our computers. Okay. But you always make sure you're facing your judge. Okay. It drives me nuts when teams are looking at one another. Okay. The other team is only there to help you sound good. You've got to have someone to debate. You are not debating to the other team. You are debating to your judge. One of the things that drives me absolutely crazy as a coach is I will walk into a round with one of my teams and I'll say, what's the strategy? And they'll start chatting to me about the strategy and I'll stop and say, who's the judge? There's two problems. One, sometimes they won't know. Oh, makes me irate, does it not? Okay. And number two, I'll stop and say, well, that judge doesn't care about that argument. And they're like, but this team, I don't care about the other team. They're simply there for you to think about what you want to say. Who you're speaking to, who you're trying to win as the judge. You should always be facing the judge, even in cross-examination. Now, this is something that's strange for kids who are new to debate or who are younger. It's really hard to get used to, right? Because when you speak to someone in a normal conversation, what do? You look at them, right? But in debate, you don't look at your opponent, you look at the judge. That's who you're speaking to. You're not really speaking to the other team. Because if the judge wasn't there would be no point in that debate. If there wasn't an audience, there would be no reason to be there. So, look at your judge. Eye contact. Very important. I don't care if you're reading papers and it's in front of you, right? I always tell people, keep whatever you're doing. So if I had a podium, and you'll notice our podiums are flat, keep it flat. There's a difference, isn't there? What differences do you notice when I do this? Christian. Harder to hear. What else? Devin.
Can't see anything.
Can't see anything. What's the problem now?
No eye contact.
How about this? Can you hear me? How does it sound?
Fine.
Telling you my tip. Okay. Always make eye contact. Know where your judge or judges are. Okay. There's nothing wrong with having something this high. Okay. So let's say Clayton is my judge. The difference in what I do if I'm on a computer is this. I can speak this way and I can still look out at him. Okay. Something else I want you to notice. If I'm getting ready to speak, what do you notice about my stance? I'm getting ready to do a debate. Okay. Somebody do. What do you notice about what I'm doing? Come on!
You're not like slouching or anything.
I'm not slouching, I'm sitting straight up. We'll talk about why that's important in a moment. Why up? What else am I doing? Check it out, check it out. Look under the desk. 7.
Staggered.
Right. There's a stance. Okay? There is a debate stance, especially in policy. Okay? This means we're ready to go. If you're in the other debate events, you can still be using this stance because if you're set up properly and you've got your podium set up, You want to be able to point that first foot. It's no different than a sport. I have my foot pointed at whom?
The audience.
Right. So I know. There's a difference between standing at him looking like this. Does it seem like I'm as in tune to Clayton as I was just a moment ago? Versus this. Okay. If I'm speaking on a computer, I still haven't lost the art of eye contact. Okay. What did I do here? Clayton's my judge. What did I do with my computer? Go ahead.
You turned it so that you could make eye contact.
Right, I turn it so that I can read like this, but I can still quickly glance at him. Now, let's say Elizabeth is my judge. I'm doing the same exact thing. Right? I understand I'm blocking you out because in my world you don't exist, you're the judge. Okay, even if you have an audience in a room. Okay? So you get into a judge panel, you have 3 judges. You need to adjust. Your podium doesn't matter what the rest of the audience is doing, but you need to be focused on those judges. And you adjust accordingly. If they're all over the room, right? So let's say you've got judges that are in various locations, and I would have my podium down low so that I was reading this way. Okay. Normally I say have an eye contact, like this is actually how I would debate. Just like this. Okay. I can read it. I'd actually tilt the screen a little bit. I can read it. I can look out at Clayton, my judge. It's high, it's eye level. It allows me to stand perfectly straight. But if I had 3 judges and they were in 3 different spots in the room and I couldn't do this, I'd have to lower it a little bit. Okay, I'd lower it here, I'd tilt the screen up, and now I can see everything. Computers have really changed the face of debate. Far too many debaters spend their time in their computer, drives me nutty. Okay. Sometimes I want to be like, hello, I'm still here. I think that too when debaters are all talking to themselves and not at me. Hello, how important. Alright, audience adaptation. This is crucial. You take any comm class, they will tell you, before you give a presentation, know who you're giving the presentation to. Every speaker that I lined up for this camp, besides saying yes and asking what topics I wanted them to speak about, the very next question was, describe your audience to me. They wanted to know something about all of you before they prepared their notes, because they were going to adapt to you. You should be doing the same thing with judges. You should know something about your judge. If you had someone like young Quan in the back of the room, 1 round as your judge, and the next round you had an older lady of, let's say, white hair, gray hair, would you, the way you approach that debate, would it be different? I would sure hope so. Okay. So you should always change what you're doing. Okay. And no matter, just 1 second, no matter what debate event you are in, you should have different versions of your cases. Okay. You should have one that it's a little bit faster, that you have more material in, because you know you have a little bit younger judge who's going to keep up with you a little bit. Okay. In a public forum LD, you should not be going super fast. Just gonna throw that out there. But you can go a little bit quicker, right? You can throw more facts out than you could with somebody who's probably a little older. Being ageist right now, but making some generalizations. You should also have different versions out depending on the type of coach or judge you have. Right? If I'm a policy debater and I have a speech coach in the back of my round, then I would know that I would be taking a lot of information out, slowing down, and really adding some extra emphasis so I could demonstrate what a powerful speaker I am. Just because we speak fast in policy doesn't mean that there aren't times that we need to slow down or that we can't be effective, powerful, persuasive public speakers. We speak relatively slow now when we're talking to you, but when you get us into a debate round, junior debaters are pretty quick, as are most college teams. If I have a judge in the back of my room that does LD or public forum and I'm in policy, right, that should also adjust the way you're presenting, right? You should still be slowing down. should think about, you can still use quite a bit of fact for those events, but think about a normal person who judges LD day in and day out. What do they understand best? Morals, ethics, questions of morality. Those are smart things to have in your cases on both the half or the neg if you have an LD judge. If you have a public forum judge, what are they used to dealing with? Facts, right. So it should have a lot of policy level facts in there. Okay, now let's switch. If you're an LD and you have a policy judge, what should that mean to you? Lots of facts, but what else can policy people do?
Evidence.
Should have lots of evidence, right? It's not going to be one of those where you have a lot of fillers. It's going to be lots of evidence, following another, following another, following another. That's when you have your version of your cases that you can use, all right, more expert opinion. Now, policy judges are used to hearing critiques and policy level arguments, so they'll be able to hear, right, any of those things. Same thing with, public forum. If you have a policy judge, you should know what to do. You can add some more facts. Speak a little faster, not too fast. Do you understand the point? Some different tips that I can give you. Okay. How are you going to know the differences in judges? We dress differently. People who do a lot of policy dress differently than everybody else. We are lazy. Right. The typical syndrome of a policy debater is that we're up pretty late doing whatever, even during tournaments. What time did you go to bed last night? 4:30. Okay, I was up until about 1:30. For me, that's late. Okay, I have little kids. Okay. That becomes a standard. When we go to debate tournaments, we are up. Sometimes we don't sleep because we're doing research. Okay, so the amount of sleep that we get will not be interrupted by looking good. Now, how Jackie always manages to look good in the morning, I have no idea. I rolled out. I'm like, did I brush my hair? I think so. All right, let's go. So you'll be able to tell. Our clothes will be wrinkled a lot of times. We'll look tired. We'll look a little wired because we've all been drinking so much caffeine. That'll tell you something. Okay. LD judges, or coaches and judges, and PF judges, or speech judges, they tend to look much nicer than us policy folks. I'm just going to admit that, and that's okay. Okay, not always, but often. I mean, I dress nice for certain occasions. I dress nice for the NDT. What to tell you? It's nice for districts, at least the first day. Okay. After that, it's like I've been up for days.
We need to get our teams through.
Right. That's right. I'm like, don't talk to me. There becomes a point in the season where my husband knows, like, I'll call you when I'm ready to talk, because if not, I'm like, I can talk to you right now, because we're like busy trying to do things. I get in my mode. Mode, he'll tell you, my groove. All right. Some other things you'll know. There's a difference in how we will approach things. Often, right, our laptops will be out. If we have laptops out, typically that tends to be who?
Policy.
Right. Okay. If we're asking you for paper and pens, if we're flowing on regular paper, right? I flew on this. Okay, now how about if somebody walks in with a long legal pad? A lot of times it can be LD because they have a lot more involved. It can also be public forum. So that should tell you something. Okay, what if they turn it sideways, right? Instead of writing long ways down the paper, they turn it this way. A lot of times it's public forum. It can often be LD. It can also be a speech coach, right? People who are used to dealing with longer, more involved argumentation, right, tend to write long because they want more space. Right? They know that they got to write small columns and write longer because they have to get more things on that piece of paper. They turn it sideways, then they're used to not having as many facts on it, and so they don't have as much to write down. That should tell you something about your judges. Okay. Timers. If we tell you we're not going to time you, we're probably what event? Right. I don't even know if I have a timer anymore. I'll have to look. Okay. If they have a timer on a string, what event do they come from?
Speech.
Speech, usually, right. And that's what they use. That should tell you something. Okay. LD public forum judges sometimes use it. You see some more crossover to public forum and LD from speech than you do to policy, but not always. Okay. But if they've got a timer on a string, then they time things a little bit differently, and that should tell you something. All right. Next, sound engaged. Sound engaged. If you come in, and you're like this, and you're leaning over, and this is how you talk, you get to the whole debate, and you use the same tone of voice, and you seem like you're put out to be there, you're not interested, what do you think your judge is thinking?
This is gonna
I'd be thinking, why in the hell am I up? I could be sleeping. Right. We adore sleep. Okay. They're bored. Okay. Some people, have you ever heard the phrase they could read the phone book?
Oh.
You should be able to get to that point. Okay. I would say that most of the kids on our team or on our coaching staff really can make the phone book sound interesting.
I'd like to see that.
It's just something that you learn to sound engaged. Okay. Do I always sound like I'm into whatever I'm talking to you about? How do I do that? What is it about that tells you that, Luke?
your inflection.
Right, the way I raise my voice, lower my voice. What else?
Hand gestures.
I use some hand gestures.
You're very animated in like your facial expressions.
Right. The facial expressions make the person, that's for sure. If you ever, once you get to know me, you'll know just from the look on my face what I'm thinking. I can look at Jackie and make one face, and she's like, got it on it, taken care of. Okay. Another funny sidebar. When I was at Perry, I brought August in when he was a baby, and I'll never forget. I was sitting in the debate office, and all of a sudden I heard the debaters being like, "Oh no! Oh my gosh!" I'm like, "What is going on?" So I come out because we used to have this little section that was we had a like, what the heck are those things called? Partitions. I came out and I'm like, "What's going on?" They're like, "He's doing your face." So August was only a few weeks old, and they were saying something to him, and he did the like this with the eyebrow lift. Okay, it's hard to do. Not everybody can do this. And they were like, "Ah! It's like your face looking at us." It was, and Anna Liebler was just freaking out. "Oh, Casey gives me the same look of disgust." Like, and he was a baby, and they'll still talk about that now because I'm very animated. Right. So that's how you know that I'm into what I'm saying. I'm engaging. Okay. What else do I do?
You have very good eye contact.
Yes, eye contact. I think in this room, how many of you thought at one point, wow, she's looking at me? Raise your hand. Just about every single person in the room that says something. Okay. Do I look like I actually enjoy any material I'm talking to you about?
Yeah.
Okay. One of the most boring lectures I've given so far was yesterday in the policy lecture about Mexico, Cuba, and Venezuela. Did I look like I was into it?
Yes.
I mean, it's not that I don't like those countries. It's not that it was fun to come and talk to you, but I was like, their climate is blah, 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 blah. Here's where they're at on the map. And it just made me think of my geography professor in college. It was so boring. I'm like, I understood it was geography, but come on, man. The only thing I remember from that class is that he used to stand up very erect, and he always kept chapstick in his breast pocket, and he would talk for a while, and every so often he would pull it out, and he would reapply it, and I would just be like this. And I would just like focus on him and be like, don't stare at his lips. Don't stare at his lips. Because he would constantly do it. It was the strangest thing. Okay? The most boring material ever. And I don't know how I got through the class. And I used to carry this big bag of candy that was like this big. And this whole class, I would just sit here and do this. Which is probably how I, went from like 100 pounds to what I am now. I just kept eating. Because I was like, I can't fall asleep. And he would see kids in the class and they would like nod off. And he would just like stare at them and stare at them. And I'd be like, I don't want him to ever stare at me while I'm sleeping. And so I would just keep eating candy and just stare at him and like lock in, like, oh. I don't remember anything from the class, but I remember that. Okay. Right? Every time you give a speech, it should sound like you're giving a story. Right? You're into it. Look, debate cases are that way. You are giving them a story. It's your personal story, what you want to tell them about the topic, what is important to you. And so I always emphasize to debaters, particularly on their affirmative cases, when you're negative, you can't pick. When you're affirmative, pick something you are passionate about. something you believe, something you can get behind, something you don't mind reading about ad nauseum, something you can sound powerful on. And some of the best rounds that I've heard at the Tournament of Champions, the National Debate Tournament, which are the sort of most competitive national tournament, have been very powerfully delivered. Where they have been sort of in my face, not literally, but their hands have gone, and they're loud, and they're animated, and I thought, they really mean this. Okay? That's how you should always sound. If you are not sure how to do this, right, some people, they don't have, I'm Italian, and I've been working on these sorts of sounds for a long time. That's how my whole family speaks. Okay? If you've ever been with my family, it's like, okay? You go in, and it's so loud because everyone's as loud as I am. Imagine having a big group of my family and we're all this loud, animated, and this passionate about everything. So, if you're not sure how to do this, there are some ways that you can teach yourself how to do this. Okay, we're going to talk more about that in a moment. But one of the best things you can do is go through your cases and circle keywords. Kill! Attack! Terrorism! Right? Those are big words. So you should know that you want to circle those. Thank you, Todd.
Should I perform those actions?
You don't necessarily perform those, but you do, man. Really.
Attack!
If I did that, if I came into the room, to one of my debaters was like, kill! They would go, oh.
I would grab
Right. They're all got a certain amount of I don't know, they tell me I'm intimidating. So whenever I say things like that, or if I'm in my office and they'll just hear me, I'll come out after I've been in there ranting and everyone's gone. I'm like, huh.
Kill! Attack!
Right. But there is a difference, right? So you take certain words that you know they're important, right, or that are passionate words in your cases, and circle them or highlight them, whatever you need to do to make them stand out. Okay. You can teach yourself that, or at least you can learn it, but you can force yourself. And by circling those words or highlighting keywords or key phrases, don't make them longer than 3 words, right? I could not keep this up forever because someone would be like, what is wrong with her? Right? But I can keep that up for a certain amount of time and no one thinks. Right? You see the difference? Okay. I always love it when I'm like, circle keywords, and a new debater comes and hands it to me, and I'm like, are you going to yell the entire paragraph? They're like, well, the paragraph's really important. I'm like, this is not going to work. Okay, we got to adjust this a little bit. Okay, that and you're going to be hoarse when you get done with your 9-minute speech.
Yelling.
If you've talked to me after I get done with one of these, you'll also notice I go hoarse for a few minutes afterwards when I get done speaking to you. Right? You should kind of feel that way. When you're giving a speech, I tell my debaters when they get done, they should be tired. You should have packed so much energy into that. You get done and you're just... I call it sort of my debate high. I get that energy, I get into the swing, I'm going, I'm revved up, and then I get done and I'm hoarse, I've drained my energy. Is this true? When you got done doing any of your speeches, you were like, oh.
I sweat like no one.
Oh,
Todd does sweat.
There was a guy who was a top, first round college policy debater who would carry a sweat towel around him every tournament. And it was disgusting because it was always the same towel. He would just, during his entire speech, you'd see him when he got into it, sweat would just start dripping. Grab the towel.
Yep.
It was like a motion.
Talking about Eddie.
Back to
Back
the
down.
speech. It was pretty awesome, but yeah, you should get that into it to where you need a
Right.
sweat towel.
Even in the other events where you're going slowly, you should still, right? If you're packing the right amount of energy into that speech, you're going to have those same sorts of moments. Okay. Or you're just sort of energized, right? When Young and Kyle get done speaking, they're tired, they take a drink of water, you'll see little beads of sweat. Young, when you get done speaking, you're tired, aren't you? Right. And sometimes I go, woo! When he gets done. Huh? Yes, you do that. Yes. We watch you debate a lot. I do. I've seen that. Right? There's a certain amount of energy you bring to it. Even in an event like this, I'm not speaking fast, right? I'm not spreading much of evidence. But can you see my energy level? Can you see why when I get done, I'm tired? need a minute. Like, if you ever noticed when I get done speaking, I kind of like just sit down or I walk out of the room for a few minutes, right? It's not always a great time to come and find me to chat because it's like I'm tired. I'm like, give me 5 minutes, and I'll tell them that. Like my team will know if I've just presented something to them. They know to give me a few minutes to walk out, and relax, and come back in. Okay. Every speech you do should be that way. Okay, one of my last tips: be organized. We'll tell you this ad nauseum. Alright? Be organized. Signposting is a beautiful thing. Number 1. Number 2. Too much signposting is a horrible thing. I'll never forget. I was listening to a debater do a speech. And they're like, number 1, little a, little b, little c, little d. And I was like, what? And then they got to like little g. I was like, what is happening? Okay? I do not understand what you're talking about. Okay? Too much signposting is a bad thing, but some simple signposting, 1 or 2, observation 1, observation 2, and then kind of numbering it, and all events is helpful. All events. Okay? Even when, I think the most fluid of cases is actually in Lincoln-Douglas debate. I think they're the most fluid, right? That it seems almost as though you're writing the paper, everything's very smoothly presented, but even there you can have that, right? I'll begin with my first observation that my value will be, right? That's my value because first and second or third, those are still valuable. Okay. Same thing with public forum. You should have them organized. Judges love that. But it's not just about signposting. When I say organized, have all your papers ready. Nothing aggravates me more than when I get up, someone says they're ready, they're done with prep time, they're going to stand up, and they're still organizing their papers. Or, oh, hold on, I got to find this document. Oh, wait, hold on, let me scroll down. If you've ever had me, if anyone ever judged them, Jackie will say, oh man, I get so mad. Like, let's go. You are costing me valuable seconds of my life. Like, I could be eating, I'm hungry, I could be cutting a car, I could be sleeping, anything, but just standing here watching you get ready drives me insane because I'm always doing something during prep time. Okay. Whenever somebody else is prepping, I am doing something, so I always have my computer. I am tracking our teams. I am organized. I run our sort of like what we call our war room. So in other words, everyone sends me information. If I'm not there, Jackie does it. That's kind of what we do. Everyone sends me the information of every argument they've heard all day long. We're at a tournament. All day I'm constantly getting text messages, emails, everything's shooting into me. And I'm making a list of what we need to do. So if Jackie was at a tournament, taking me out would be a huge strategy for a team. Like, we're going to get rid of Kramer. Or Jackie if I'm not there. Okay, and so I'm constantly busy. I'm updating, sending out who's going to cut this, who's going to do that, who's going to research that. I'm doing the research constantly during prep time. I want every second. So in those seconds where somebody's standing up and they're fiddle-faddling, right? Because I've taken that and put that away as they're getting ready to speak, and now I have my paper out, my pen, because I still flow old school on paper. Well, I started again. I'm waiting, and so you're wasting seconds that I could be getting something done. I want to get as much done as I can so I can do other things, more focused, so I can eat. So be organized. Next, most important thing about public speaking is practice makes perfect. First thing I tell you, my debaters hear me say this all the time. Practice the way you play. When they come in and they're like, well, I would normally do this in a round. Not a single debater comes into Kramer's office and doesn't have their podium stand up and isn't ready to go. They do it exactly the same way that we do that in a round. Is that not true, Todd? You will practice for me the same way you will do it in a debate round, and that should be your approach. Whenever you are going to practice a speech, it should be just the way you would do it in an actual round. Okay. The other thing is, you've got to keep practicing with different types of people. You're not going to be in a sort of cookie-cutter situation where you have the same type of judge round in and round out. So what I tell people is, practice your skill with various people. So yes, if you have a debate coach, practice with them. If you have a teammate who can handle, really fast speaking, practice with them. Practice with your parents. Practice with the teacher who's never seen debate before. Practice with all skill levels because you never know what you're going to have. You should always have cases written for every skill level, from the person who's done debate for their entire lives, who can do the fastest thing you've got for them, to the person who has never once seen a debate round in their life, and everything in between. Okay? It will prepare you. Okay? Especially if you do, I don't know how many of you get into a situation where you do regional debate, right? And it's not quite as intense as, say, what we're doing at GMU, and you get a lot of parent judges, a lot of lay judges. Okay? You got to practice that. That's an art. It's an art to win a lay judge as much as it's an art to win someone like me who's been doing debate for 20 years. Okay, so you got to practice at different varying levels. Okay. How often? This is what kids always tell me. How often should we do this? If this tells you anything, when our team comes back from breaks, I think 2 times a day we make them read for 20 minutes. 20 minutes full through. If you've ever done that, it is exhausting. Look, Todd gives a sad face. So it's like, oh. Okay, 20 minutes. You should be doing, if you're gonna do debate on a regular basis, twice a day for at least 10 minutes. You can't find 2 10-minute periods somewhere, right? It's not good.
When you get home from school and when you are about to go to sleep. That's usually what I do. 'Cause I don't like waking up early.
Okay, the reason why you want to keep practicing this all the time is because it's kind of like a marathon. Okay. If you haven't spoken, right, if you haven't done a public speaking address, or you haven't in months, Todd, it's been months since you've done a speech. I know that's not the case because I know you're doing your speaking drills every day, even now. So you haven't spoken in months, and you go to do your first 8-minute speech. Are you tired? Right. It's a marathon. You've got to build yourself up. To have the right sort of energy, you've got to get used to doing it. So you've got to practice all the time for long periods of time so you're prepared. Okay. The other thing is it helps with your breathing. Right? How many of you ever have held your breath underwater? Right, everyone. How many of you have been like, how long can I hold it? And you tried to build up to that, right? Okay, how many of you have been like, I've only held my breath for 2 minutes. I'm going to try to hit 3 or 4 minutes. And you try to increase that. How many of you have done that?
Maybe not 2 minutes.
Yeah.
But
I did.
like 30 seconds.
All right.
I can hold my breath for 1.
Okay.
Once.
All right.
5 minutes.
The point is, you got to work that up, right? It's the same sort of concept in these public speaking addresses or in debate. You want to be able to get out as many words per minute. If any of you ever watch me when I'm speaking, you would notice my breath intakes. I have not taken a breath in a while. I just keep going. That's something you got to work up to. Now I'm taking my breath, right? But you'll be able to tell, right? Because you've got to build up to that. And the way to do that is practice. Okay? You've got to get the ability to hold air in there and get out as many words as you can in that amount of time. Questions so far? Nervousness. It's the most common thing I hear. How do you deal with nervousness? I've had parents come to me and say, I don't understand how my student, bless you, would want to do debate because they're so nervous. They get so nervous when they're speaking. Okay. Easy to fix. First thing I tell people is they've got to be prepared. There's a difference between standing up and having no idea what you're going to talk about versus having had some time to prepare a speech, right? Okay. So, you will not be as nervous if you are ready and you do your debate work on a consistent basis. Okay. If you're just walking out all the time and winging it all the time, you're probably going to be a little more nervous. But if you know that you've read stuff over, you're ready, okay. That nervousness is completely normal. Lots of people go through it. So, the best thing I can tell them is to be prepared. Second, your hands. You know how people can tell most frequently that someone's nervous? These guys. Okay. Right, they're holding paper. I can't make myself do it because I don't know how to get there. There we go. Right, you can see that. Okay. If I'm nervous now and I'm still shaking, can you tell? Right. Hands are the biggest cue. Okay. So put your hands down. Don't keep fiddle faddling. Hold on to something. It's okay. Now, when I do this, when I consult with people who want to improve their public speaking, I tell them it's okay. You can hold on to that. Grip those things like they're like your hands are like the jaws of life. It's all right. Put all your energy into that hand, right, where you're holding on. People aren't going to notice. You're going to be more focused on squeezing than you are about being nervous. Keep still, right? This, I'm nervous. This, fiddle. I don't know how to do all these things. Right. Moving around. Yeah, your tie, right? Those are all indicators of nervousness. Stand still. You're just giving yourself away. Keep your hands, especially if you're one who fiddles a lot, keep your hands still somewhere. Okay? There's always a position. When I was debating, when I did the debating, I always had my timer right here, so my hands didn't move, other than if I wanted to gesture with my hands, because you've all seen me now for a while. Hand gesture always have been. Okay? Watch your hand gestures, though. There's a while, after a while, you're like, oh, give it a break. Okay. Am I constantly flailing around? Pretty animated. Am I constantly moving? No, right? There's time and a place for it. If you're someone who you know you're going to move a lot, if it's possible to like you can see my feet under here. But if you can get it set up so they don't see your feet if you're going to move a lot, that's always suggested there's something. Some classrooms have the big tall podium. Stand in front of those if you know your feet are going to be. Do a little tap dance. Okay? If you know that you're someone who's going to get nervous, the other thing that I tell them, let's skip back, is comfortable clothing. If you're uncomfortable, how many people have noticed that? What you put on, boys maybe not as much, I don't know. Oh no, I guess my son, I can tell when he's uncomfortable in his outfit. He's fiddling with it all the time, telling me, I don't like these pants. Or, girls especially, we'll be messing with our clothes. We want to make everything just right.
Don't wear tight clothes.
Yeah, don't wear tight clothes, right? Bad things
They
happen.
make you look so much better if you're wearing them. And you're like, I look good, but I don't know how many times I've been like, this skirt and.
Or you go to bed over. Okay, so I say, watch what you're wearing. Make sure it's comfortable so that it doesn't add to. If you're a person who gets nervous, it's going to add to your discomfort if you are uncomfortable in your clothing. Right? I also tell people, wear something you think look good in that. Okay. To boost your confidence. Come on, we all know it. There's a certain shirt, like Todd. I was just telling last time, like, look at your little closet. He's got all his shirts lined up. There's a certain shirt or certain thing you wear that you think, I like it. Come on. We all do that. Don't play me like a fool. We all do. Christian's like, I always look good. So. All right, so wear something that makes you, makes you feel confident or that's comfortable to you, but it's not something you're going to be fussing with 100 times a day. I also tell girls heels. No. Okay, I know people like those things, but you know what? Here's a couple of things. First of all, if you're nervous and your shoes make noise, well, especially doing heels, you're going to hear that every time you go to adjust your foot. It drives me nuts. Okay. Plus, you could fall, you could trip, you're worried about falling down in heels. I mean, some people get really used to heels and they can walk with them no problem. I am not one of those people. Okay. I don't even attempt it. So be careful with that. Skirts for girls, don't make them too short. Okay, if you're constantly worried about, I've got to bend over just right to get to this thing, right? You should only do that in your wedding dress. Okay, so don't think about that. All right, eye contact, right? That's the biggest thing that I hear people say is they can't look at someone. Let me give you a couple of tips. If you're someone who gets nervous, you still need to make eye contact. The best thing to do is just look over their heads. Look at their ear or past their ear. Okay? Adrian, stand up. I want everybody to notice what I did. All right, so I'm talking to him. Does it look like I'm speaking to him? I'm looking above his head. Okay, and you see the difference? If you get nervous, you still want to make eye contact, because if you never look at somebody, your head's always down like this, and you're squeezing this, like, it's gonna look like you're nervous. But instead, I'm squeezing it, and I can look just above their head, and I can look up like this. I don't seem like I'm quite so nervous, right? I don't do a very good impression of nervous, sorry, but I'm doing my best. Look above their head or past their ear, okay, just above them on the wall. They're not gonna be able to tell.
It's also kind of disconcerting when you're judge and the person directly looks at you in the eyes, like right now I'm looking at Dana, and she probably feels really uncomfortable, whereas if I was kind of just like right over to the side of her, she can still tell I'm kind of directed towards her, but she doesn't feel like I'm trying to read every thought in her head.
Boy, too much eye contact can make. I've had that. I've looked up and I've been like, they're staring at me. Why are they staring at me? And I start thinking, like,
Is there something on
my
face?
nose, my face, my teeth. And like, did I fall asleep? Did I fall asleep? Did I have a moment? Was I sleeping? That did sometimes happen with me. I'm gonna ever fallen asleep in every rounds.
Sounds awesome.
Too loud. Okay. The other thing about when you get nervous, ignore your errors. We're all going to make them, right? We've all mispronounced a word in front of you, right? Think we're pretty smart, don't you? I don't stop and go, oops, sorry. Right? You've heard me pronounce some of your names. Just like, and I keep going. Okay? Own your error. It's all right. Just keep going. Ignore them. Okay, here's the biggest thing about debate is the judge is not reading the same thing that you're reading. The judge doesn't know. Okay. So keep going. Don't draw attention. Don't keep restarting. Let me try that word again. Nope. Let me try that word again. Let me try that. Right? I never understood that. You said it wrong the first time, and now I'm going to go back and try again. Try again. Try again. Like, please. Put us all out of this misery. Just go to the next word. Okay? No one's going to know. Don't say, oops, sorry. Oops, sorry. Oh my gosh. I'll never forget a debater who used to do that all the time. Oops, sorry. Oops, sorry. You say sorry one more time. Like, just go. Okay? Don't do that. Don't draw attention to it. Okay? It's going to do more damage than good. Okay? I also tell people, this will tell you even more about. So I've had debaters, I cannot pronounce a name. I'm like, we'll just say something else. They're not going to know. I've had a debater and some really long, complicated name and go, Smith, 2010. I'm like, not that much of a change. I don't mean use like John Doe for a really complicated name. I mean, say something close in the ballpark. Okay. You can ask my debaters. When I've got speakers coming in, I'm like, how do you say the name? How do you say the name? How do you say the name? Finally, I'm like, Young Kwan, you introduce them. Okay. And I'm going to chop up their name. Okay. So it's okay. That happens. It happens to all of us. Okay, some other speaking tips for you. Aren't just about nervousness. Your hair. Keep your hair back, ladies, or gentlemen if your hair is long. What do I always do? My glasses or my headband is, I always have them with me. Ask Jackie. I always have a pair of sunglasses. I always have a headband with me. Even when I'm just coaching and I'm up in front of them and we're talking, I'm constantly pushing my hair back so nothing interrupts me. When I am in my computer and I'm trying to like cut cards and I'm into it, I don't want my hair falling down on my face, I constantly have it back with me. You will never see me without a pair of sunglasses or a headband, ever. If I did, then you know something desperately wrong happened in my morning. Okay. Alright? You always keep your hair out of your face. No pens in your hand when you go to speak. Bless you. Drives me crazy. Mm-hmm.
The pen's flip.
The clicking of the pen, right. They're talking like this. They're answering cross-talk questions like this. And I'm, as a judge, going, what? Okay, I'm watching the pen. Oh!
I'm just going,
Oh.
oh my gosh, I wish I could do that. And I'm like,
Twirl your
like,
pen?
how are we doing it?
Twirl your pen?
No!
Wow. I know that.
Yeah,
Okay.
we've been trained for
So-
2 months, so.
Keep pens out of your hands when you're going to speak. Okay? You don't really need to write things down. If you do, write it down and put your pen back down. It's the most aggravating thing. Okay. Do not chew gum when you're speaking publicly. Oh. I had this debater once who always had gum. And she would always want to take it out and just set it down beside her when she would go to speak. I'd be like, no. No. You will throw it out. Okay. Don't have things in your mouth. I don't even suggest, like, if you have a cold or a cough, suck on a cough drop, and then as soon as you go to speak, take it out. You could choke, that'd be bad. Okay. Alright. The other thing I say is drink plenty of water. No sugary products or dairy products. Whatever you're going to do debate, you should not be drinking. I know, we love our caffeinated beverages, right? Or our Starbucks. If you want to drink those, that's fine. But that should not be the last thing on your tongue, so to speak. Same thing with dairy products, ice cream, milk. Okay, sugary products and dairy products create a sort of film on your tongue, and they make it more difficult to speak. So I'm drinking a dairy-type product. What have you noticed I do?
Water.
right? I always have multiple things here. And even for you all, and I'm speaking pretty slow, I'm not being evaluated, maybe I am, but whatevs. And I'm still doing it, right? So if it works for me, it works for you. Okay, I tell our debaters the same thing. Like, they do nothing but walk around with bottles of water. How many bottles of water do you think our team goes through in a tournament?
That's especially important for policy debaters. I did competitive opera singing, and when you are at any of those tournaments, you should not consume any dairy. It's the same thing with policy. You're using your diaphragm the same way because you're speaking faster. So if you have dairy in your body, it just slows you down, it makes you tired.
Same thing with when you eat lunch. One of the worst things you can do is eat a warm lunch. Okay, when you're in class, when you're in debate, and this is funny because we so often, what do you eat at debate tournaments? Pizza, right? So it's warm typically. It's one of the worst things you can eat because when you eat something warm, what do? It's a natural body reaction, Christian. You relax, you get sleepy. Okay. Yesterday, how many of you had a warm lunch before you came in for the realism lecture? Keep your hands up high. I think I saw a few of these people nodding off at various points. Right?
It's funny, I didn't see any of the people with their hands down.
I wasn't nodding off. That wasn't.
Added huge thought.
I'd say this was all of you. Say so. Okay. So it makes a difference what you put in your body, believe it or not. Okay. These great drinks that everyone loves so much, Monsters, Red Bull, they are terrible for speaking. Right? I think they're like one of the worst things ever. Now I will say that before I had my boys, I went through this period where I really liked a particular type of energy drink. I drank them all the time, and I would buy them by the case when we would take them to tournaments. Very bad habit. So don't get into that. But they're not good for you. They make you all sticky. Okay. All right. The other thing I tell people is you should always warm up before you speak. Todd, in the morning, when you're in the van, when you first get up after you eat breakfast, what do I make every GMU debater do?
Speaking drills
Right, they
at like
hate-
6:30 a.m. in the hotel.
Yes.
You have to do at least like 10 minutes.
Right. I make every debater sit there and just read and read and read and read. When we get to the school, we're ready for pairings. What do I make you do?
Read.
Right. They probably get at least a good 20 minutes of reading in before they even start their first round in the morning. It makes a difference. Okay. You will see a difference in points. You know, when I first came to GMU, people were kind of hesitant. They didn't want to do it. Sort of the old group of kids when I came. And those of you from Ohio, you've probably heard stories about me. I had a very, this is what we do. This is how it works. This is what we've always done. It makes us good. And so I came here and I was like, do speaking drills when you wake up. We're doing it. And they were all like, we want to sleep for 10 more minutes. So they'd be in the van, they'd have their hoods up, they'd be like this. Like, no, you have to debate in this little bit. You have to be awake. Okay, so I have a rule. You have to read in the morning. You can eat breakfast, you get dressed, but you have to read for almost 20 minutes. Then, you should be listening to music. Okay. Everybody has their choice. If you don't have one, you get in the car, and me and Jackie are usually jamming out. Like, we turn on our music. Even I do that. Okay. I can go to my backpack right now. My iPod and my headphones are in there. How many of you see me in the back of the room and I put my headphones in right away? Right? You're getting into your groove. It's the same thing, right? They play music before sports, right? When somebody comes up to bat, they're playing music. You do the same thing in debate, right? I tell them, you read, you find whatever music it is that puts you in your zone, right? If you don't have it, I'll provide it for you. Okay? And I do the same thing. I walk into tournaments. As soon as we get out of the van, what's one of the first things I do? Yes. Right, but then as I'm walking in, typically I have on in.
Stop.
Right, I keep listening to music usually even if we walk in. Okay. Yes.
When you say read, are they reading like their cases or are they
Yeah.
reading? Okay.
Yep, they're reading their cases. Okay, so when I first came here, nobody was really into that. So I sat down and just said to them, do an experiment for me. Just do it a couple of tournaments and see what happens. I got to record it. Like, we keep all of their point scores. Like, when you go to debate, if you're not familiar with this, you get a winner or loss, but each speaker gets ranked and they get a certain amount of points. So I took their points from, earlier in the tournament, earlier tournaments, and I took the points from when I made them start doing these speaking drills. And I showed them the difference. And their points were considerably higher from the Saturday mornings or the early mornings, also Sunday mornings, so when I made them do those speaking drills versus when they did not do them. It makes a huge difference. Now, for some people, they're like, geez, that's really too intense. I don't care, I win. And oh, we've had that. Man, Eugene, you take me really serious. We win. I think you've probably figured out, do we enjoy this?
Yes.
We have a good time. We sit in the debate office. We do these things where we have these music challenges. I am the undefeated winner thus far, despite the age difference. Where we all pick a music and a song, and somebody's like, I like this one better or that one better. We have our own playlist that we play. That we at great length we discuss these playlists. Okay, and we do all that while we're working, while we're reading in the morning. So yes, it's an intense, sure, but we have a really good time doing it. We enjoy it. If you get the right atmosphere going, you can do that and still enjoy it. Okay, you should always be warming up. Let's talk a little bit about going fast. It's a question of speed. Right? Policy debaters, we talk pretty quickly. I think even for a public speaking address, I think I still speak somewhat quick. How many of you have been trying to keep up with me in notes and be like, huh, right, she talks fast. Right, but I'm pretty clear. Okay, the very first rule of speed, don't talk fast if you are clear. Okay. You should never start off trying to go really fast when you're new to debate. Okay, you should be getting used to it. Clarity comes first. Speed is a good thing to have in your arsenal. Okay, I'll tell you, more and more LD rounds are getting quicker and quicker. Okay, it's good to practice this art, to be able to use it. But it shouldn't come at the sake of clarity. Some of the best speakers that I have ever heard are crystal clear. I can hear their evidence even as they're speaking faster and all blazes. Okay, should always be clear. The other thing is you should be breathing properly. Just because you're going fast doesn't mean you're like constantly holding your breath. You should still breathe in the normal spots, right? Where punctuation is. Punctuation was built into the English language so that would tell you where to breathe or how to make your voice go. There are natural pauses. Stick with those pauses. Okay, so if you see a period, if you can get 2 sentences in, beautiful. Then take your pause at the end of that. But you shouldn't be breathing. I don't even know how to do it anymore. So it has become commonplace to spread through the evidence. That's a terrible habit. People want to hit. No, it has become commonplace to spread through the evidence. Period. Right? So breathe in your natural punctuation. Often people are trying to speak fast, you're trying too hard. Okay. You shouldn't be too straight, if you start going real high pitched, or the judge is giving this funny face, slow it down. Okay. I'm very facial, so if I can't understand somebody, I'm always like, have you ever seen, did I ever do that in your rounds where you're,
Not when I speak.
of course. But with other debaters?
When my partner's
But I will, sometimes I'll say, can't understand you, or I'll just make faces, or I'll just put my pen down. I'm staring at you like this and I'm not writing anything down. That's a problem. Yeah, I do that. Understand there's some places where you have to go a little slower than others. If you're reading a bunch of numbers, slow down. Because I always think the numbers are not. You don't want too many statistics and numbers. When I was in Ohio, I'll never forget a round. Most of you know the NFL district tournaments. Most places have them. Or your NCFL district tournaments, those are the same things. I was in this really big round, okay, and I was judging 2 teams from Worcester. And the one debater just starts throwing out all these statistics, and I just literally started cracking up. There was 2 other judges, and I just what? Out loud in the round, just started cracking, and the whole room just burst, because I kind of would cue people, and they would all just start laughing, because everybody's thinking the same thing, but I'm the only one who's willing to start laughing about it. And I just kind of look at him like, I have no idea what you're talking about right now. And he just kind of laughs, and he's just like, okay. And he's like, new example, right? Because he started throwing out all these numbers. I can't possibly write these numbers down. And finally, I'm just like, this is pointless. Okay, so I always tell you to be cautious with that, and especially if you're trying to go fast on top of that, and you're throwing out a bunch of numbers, and you're speaking quickly. For most everyone. Okay, watch numbers. Okay. The other thing I tell people is that if you want to speak quickly, or you think you're having speaking issues, have a diagnostic done. If you've never had a diagnostic done on you, you should get one done. You know, on the staff who's great at diagnostics, me. I'm the one that people come to. I will be able to tell you within a certain amount of time what issues you're having. If you're having troubles with a certain sound, right, certain vowels or consonant sounds give people a hard time. Some people sound really choppy. Some people are really high-pitched. Okay. We can do diagnostics on people. I can sit down with them for 5 minutes and be like, here are your issues. Here's how we're going to fix them. There are drills. I think Jackie's and Young have shown them to LD in Public Forum. I have a set of drills, right? A couple of things. We have breath boosters. So that's reading states in a certain order, and they naturally force you to take breaths in certain areas, where you try to get out as many as you can on a breath. There are tongue twisters for certain sounds that are a problem for you. Some common ailments. All right, so diagnostic tips. Breath boosters, they're a big deal. If you don't have these drills, you can see me, or if someone reminds me, I'll put them up to the Google group like I did last year. You should do breath boosters. You put states in order, and they naturally make you start breathing differently. Rhythm is a big thing. Some kids who sound weird, they're giving speeches because they have no rhythm. Have you noticed that when I speak, or when other people speak, that they have sort of a rhythm? I have a rhythm to how I speak. If you don't have one, find one. Okay, how do you do this, you might ask? There's a couple of ways. For kids who are having real problems, I make them put rap music in, or certain types of music, and then what they do is naturally, you won't even realize it, put the headphones in, they're speaking, and eventually what they're going to do, they're just going to pick up the rhythm. You don't even realize you won't even realize that you're doing it. It just naturally happens. Another thing you can do is a metronome. Right? There are metronomes online. People, just get into this. And then you just keep increasing it, and people will get faster and faster and faster because you naturally fall into step and you try to keep up with it without even realizing you can do it. Yes, sir?
When can we get these diagnostics from you?
I can do them in the evenings. If I'm not prepping a lecture, I'll be able to do them in the evenings. If you are a commuter and you want a diagnostic done, see me. Okay. And we'll find a time. If you go really high-pitched, you're not getting enough air, right? People go, oh, they get real high like this. You just don't breathe. You're not breathing at punctuation. You're not breathing properly. You have not worked on your diaphragm, right? You should always have a lot of air in your diaphragm. That's why you stand straight up. If you sound winded, not getting enough air. If you're having clarity issues, people can't always understand you. That's an enunciation issue. You need to find out what sounds are giving you a problem, or you're trying to talk too fast. You need to slow down, Chief.
If you wear braces, you should take out your rubber bands to afford every speech. Even cross X's, like everything, you should not have rubber bands in.
Okay. If you sound choppy, that's a loss of rhythm. So there are different things you can do. The biggest tips I will give you, though, is start out slowly, work on clarity. If you're in a speech, I tell my kids all the time, whoa, 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 whoa. Don't start at 60 miles per hour. Give the pen, right? Because what you are doing, what you're reading, we as judges have to both hear and write down. So we're always going to be a couple seconds behind you. Start off a little bit slow so that somebody can catch your rhythm. Any questions about speaking? How many of you in this room have ever had a diagnostic done when you're speaking? You should get them done if you haven't. I think, Jackie, you can do them too, don't you? Yeah. But it's sort of an area of expertise for me. Now we're gonna talk about cross-sects. Let's take a 5-minute break.